Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so today we're diving into a whimsical little fable that actually hits the nail on the head when it comes to a very real, very common misunderstanding about property, safety, and the law. We're going to explore the famous grandfather clause through the lens of a charming little place known as the chicken coop-de-villa. Now, if you've ever dealt with real estate renovations or, zoning laws, you know exactly how dense and dry those regulations can be. But by breaking it all down through our story today, we're going to extract some incredibly valuable practical takeaways about how building codes actually work out there in the real world.
So here's a question for you. Is an old, unpermitted building automatically legal? It's a super common assumption, right? I mean, a lot of us just naturally believe that if a charming old structure has been standing there for decades without any issues, it must somehow be exempt from modern rules just because it's old. We kind of think the sheer passage of time grants it this magical legal immunity. We'll keep this exact question in mind as we follow the journey of our protagonist today, because the answer might completely flip how you look at that quirky, historic addition on the back of a house.
Section 1. The charming coop-de-villa. Let me introduce you to Clive, a chicken hawk who built a remarkably quirky and idiosyncratic nest for all his feathered friends.
As you can see, the coop-de-villa really evolved over time. This whole thing was not built overnight. In Season 1, it started out as just your basic, charming chicken coop. But, with each passing season, Clive expanded his home to make it just a little more delightful. By Season 2, he's adding a gourmet kitchen. By Season 3, a rooftop deck, specifically for sunbathing, naturally. And by Season 4, this sprawling, quirky birdhouse had become the absolute envy of literally every neighbor around. The absolutely crucial thing to note here is the timeline. These modifications happened over a long stretch, which firmly established them as permanent fixtures in the eyes of everyone living nearby.
But, eventually, reality catches up. Section 2. Code enforcement comes knocking. The code enforcement officer showed up, delivered the bad news, and Clive's heart absolutely sank to the floor. He was bluntly informed that he needed to get official permits for all those past additions and modifications. I mean, really think about that for a second. All those beautiful seasonal upgrades, the gourmet kitchen, the sunbathing deck, were suddenly under intense bureaucratic scrutiny. The fact that they had been there for a long time didn't matter to the officer one bit. What mattered was that they were built without official approval.
But Clive wasn't ready to just throw in the towel without leaning on a classic urban legend. Section 3. The Grandfather Clause Myth.
You see, Clive firmly believed in this grandfather clause as a sort of magical shield. He saw it as this mythical law that basically says if something was built long ago, it's just accepted as legal. It gets to remain standing, regardless of whether it complies with modern zoning or building standards. In his mind, age equaled acceptance. The structure was old, therefore, boom, it was grandfathered in.
So Clive marches down to the permit technician, fully expecting a quick rubber stamp, but instead, we get Section 4, the Grandpa Died reality check.
The permit technician looks right at him, deadpan, and exclaims, "Grandpa died." Clive's waddle literally hit the counter with a heavy thud. He completely could not believe his ears. I mean, in just 2 blunt words, the technician totally shattered his illusion. The whole notion that his quirky additions could remain untouched simply because of their unpermitted historical origin was thoroughly dispelled right then and there.
Let's actually break down the stark contrast between the fable Clive believed and the actual real-world law. The fable dictates that an unpermitted origin, if it's old enough, is just grandfathered in and legally accepted. But the law dictates that an unpermitted origin is just that, a fable. It's a total false sense of security. To remain standing, the structure requires actual, officially issued permits. It literally doesn't matter how many years the chickens have been sunbathing on that roof.
So, realizing this whimsical tale wasn't going to save his roost, Clive actually took action. Section 5. The Grand Coop-Up Party.
Clive put together a really actionable plan for compliance. Step 1. He did the paperwork. He officially applied for the necessary building permits. And then, once they were finally issued, we hit Step 2. He gathered all his neighbors for a grand coop-up party, which leads directly into Step 3, where they all work together. The air was filled with laughter and clucking as the whole neighborhood lent a hand to paint, repair, and renovate the structure to ensure it actually met all the strict safety standards.
And just like that, the coop-de-villa underwent this profound transformation. Which brings us to our final takeaway: safety, legality, and community.
Let's take a step back and really look at the big picture here for real-life property additions.
Whimsical tales and charming quirks, they are absolutely delightful. I mean, we all love a house with some character, right? But safety and legality have to be paramount. The overarching lesson from the coop-de-villa is that just because something was built a long time ago doesn't automatically mean it's safe to use today. Age does not mean a structure is magically grandfathered in to bypass safety codes. By all means, embrace the charm of your property, but never, ever forget the absolute importance of proper permits.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to really ponder. Next time you encounter a quirky structure with a tale to tell, maybe it's a beautiful old sunroom on a house you want to buy, or a massive treehouse in a neighbor's yard. Will the charm blind you to the reality of safety? Remember Clive and his coop-de-villa. Don't let an urban legend lull you into a false sense of security. Always verify, always prioritize safety, and always respect the process. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep learning.